Hello everybody! You're looking dapper today. Oh, we use books to fend off the global warming. Today I'm going to be talking about Stars Above by Marissa Meyer. This is like a collection of stories that go along with the Lunar Chronicles. In order to read all of these, you would need to have read all of the books. We revisit the whole cast from the Lunar Chronicles saga. Is that what you call 4 books? Quartets? So if you haven't read those 4, I would say go read the series because it is fantastic. And then come back and read this. This really fills in some of the gaps that we don't see in the main 4 books. And it's definitely worth the read. I really enjoyed it. So if you have not read Stars Above, goodbye. Spoilers are coming for you. So the first novella is called The Keeper, referring to Scarlett's grandmother. She lives on a farm in France and she was a pilot in her younger years and she fell in love with someone on the moon named Logan. He shows up at her door years later. So he has brought Princess Celine after she's been burned by Lavanna. Everybody thinks she's dead. Logan's plan is to help her recover because she's going to need a lot of surgery. That's how she became a cyborg. And when she's old enough, he's gonna bring her out of stasis, which is kind of like they keep her in a suspended animation so that she's alive but is not conscious at all and her body is solely focused on healing. And then he's gonna tell her who she is and help her reclaim the throne. Meanwhile, Scarlett is still living with her father and she hates him because he doesn't really try very hard with her. So she runs away to live with her grandmother. That's gonna be pretty difficult because her grandmother needs to hide a princess. She really has to cover for Logan when he shows up because Scarlett's curious about like who he is, but he has lunar sickness. So he's going crazy and he needs to wake up Cinder immediately before he literally dies from this. When they're deciding on a name, it was really interesting. They obviously can't call her Celine, that's too obvious. And Michelle is the one who comes up with the word cinder, like she came from the cinders from the ashes because she was burned. This was like a really cool way to see the origin story and to see how our characters are even more connected than we thought they were. So we move into the second novella, Glitches, and it's when Garen, Cinder's adoptive father and the inventor of the machine that makes people immune to lunar powers, has brought Cinder home to his wife and 2 daughters, and immediately we see how much Audrey hates the idea of having a cyborg in her family, while Peony is like really interested and wants to like touch Cinder's cyborg hand. Audrey snaps at her husband and says, "Get her inside, like people are watching, the neighbors can see us." Here we get like a better picture of Peony because in Cinder we see that Cinder is really close with Peony, but we don't get a ton of their relationship building. And Peony is telling Cinder all about like the net dramas that she likes, and she brings one up and we kind of start to see how Cinder learned things so quickly because when Peony says a name of one of the shows, like her mind instantly, because it's connected to the internet, starts telling her like the plot, the characters, like all that goes on in this show. And we also get our first introduction to Aiko, who is currently in a box not working because Audrey thinks that Aiko has a glitch in her personality chip. Cinder's first view of Kai is so funny. Peony is looking at a picture of Kai and she's like, every night I tie a ribbon around my finger so that we're like bonded as soulmates and all this stuff. And Cinder sees Kai's picture and she's like, his arms are kind of long for his body, don't you think? And we also get a clue as to why Cinder is so skilled with machinery. It's not only that she can pull up blueprints and knows a lot about it because she's connected to the internet, but it's also because she is part machine and she kind of connects to that part of machinery. Because when she's fixing Aiko, she says it was like an extension of her. So many people in their society hate cyborg people, but it's really interesting because they have all these extra skills that nobody's thought about. Garen catches Letimosis and it's really, really sad to see like the girl screaming after him. And Audrey is horrified. She even says like, you can't leave me by myself with this thing, and she means Cinder. It just really solidifies how much we hate Audrey. Audrey doesn't like Peony hanging around with Cinder, and so Aiko really becomes Cinder's only close friend, and Cinder tells Aiko that she can't cry, and Aiko thinks it's a glitch in her programming, and she says that she has a glitch too because sometimes she forgets that she's an android and thinks that she's human. That was a really nice setup for us to see how Aiko kind of views herself, is that like she forgets that she's not human. Like that's how human-like her personality chip is. The Queen's Army was one of my favorites because I really liked seeing how this wolf army was formed. So Wolf, who is still Zev, he knew that he was going to get brought into the Queen's Army. He's at the top of his class, he's really skilled, like he's a good student, and he was like, this was inevitable for them to come to me. And they give him all these modifications. He can smell people coming. He sees a picture of what could happen to him next. Like he still looks pretty human with some wolfish features. He sees a picture of what the next stage of these surgeries is, and he's like, there's no humanity behind like the eyes of these really much more wolf-like creatures. If he wants to avoid having to be that, he needs to be at like the top of his class to get into the best part of the Queen's Army. It was so so sad when he's telling the doctor, he's like, my gift, like something's wrong, like his lunar gift is gone. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a side effect of it. So now it's gonna be super easy to control him. Zayev's brother shows up and becomes their last member of their pack. And he tries so hard to help his little brother, and it really backfires because it makes Rand look weak. Immediately puts him in that place of Omega. So the queen shows up after they've been training and eating like raw meat and all this stuff because they're like part wolf. The queen tells them that she's going to pick like 500 of all of these wolves to be like her prize soldiers. So they're gonna showcase all of their fighters. Zayev's thaumaturge knows that he holds back a lot. And I think that was really interesting because we've seen Wolf fight so much that we don't picture him as the type to hold back. But he says, like Levana's watching and he says, she wants a show, don't hold back this time. He overpowers his alpha. I'm assuming that what he hears is from Levana and not his thaumaturge. It's like the mind power where she says, kill him, I want to see how you would do it. And he snaps his neck and becomes their alpha. We get a glimpse of younger Carswell Thorne in Carswell's Guide to Being Lucky. I read that title and just laughed because it was so Thorne. So he comes from a really rich family and all he wants is to be a captain, even though he doesn't really care about being a pilot, but that's like a necessary step to being a captain. One of their housekeepers knows this and she calls Carswell like captain. His father is like, don't call him captain until he earns it. I'm like, he's just a kid. Let him enjoy being captain. So literally he's been told over and over his entire life that he's not a captain because Cinder makes it very clear that he's not. And we kind of see how Carswell over time has developed his skills of hustling people. This guy that he doesn't like, he gives him some face cream that does not work. It's not real. The guy tells Thorne that he wants his money back. And Thorne, it's a process. I'll give you your money back, but you're gonna miss out on the best part. And we meet this girl. This is the story that Cress is talking about when she meets Thorne, where she's like, you were heroic for standing up for this girl. She's like the nerdy one that people don't really like or talk to, and he needs help with his math homework if he wants to get ungrounded for spring break. But then Thorne is like, why can't I stop looking at her? He's like developing a crush on her, and he doesn't do that. Like, he just flirts with people for what he wants. But he sees that guy, the one who he gave the face cream to, take Kate's port, and they make fun of her for like reading on it all the time. And Thorne fights and gets it back for her. Like, as a means of repayment, she says that she'll help him with the math homework. And he knows the only reason she's doing this is because she feels guilty for him getting into a fight to help her. And Thorne knows that she doesn't owe him anything, but he's still gonna take advantage of those feelings. So that's how he kind of comes to this type of self-loathing that he kind of shows to Cress for a while by saying he doesn't deserve her, is because he actively manipulates people a lot. So the fourth novella is After Sunshine Passes By. And we see all the shells that are under Sybil Mira, and they've tried to work together to hack into systems that will teach them how to read. And even though Sybil like reprimands Cress because she was the only one who could do this because she's super smart, she still wants that approval from Sybil. And Cress has told Sybil, like, if you want to spy on Earth, it's going to be really easy for them to connect it back to Luna. And Sybil kind of gives her the impression that if the project she's going to put Cress on is successful, that Cress will get to be a citizen of Luna, which is all she's really ever wanted, is to be considered a valuable citizen. But instead, Sybil takes her to her little satellite that we find her in years later. And it's so sad because Sybil's like, get in, you're living here. And she's just like alone. And all she can do is like sing that lullaby song that one of the other shells taught her about like the crescent moon. And it is the same one that Dr. Erlond sings like about her. That one was really sad. The Princess and the Guard had a lot of really cute moments. Seeing them play together was so cute. And they're like, they play Princess and the Guard all the time, even though they don't know that Jason's gonna be a guard later. She's like, what's your reward for saving me? And he says that the only reward he needs is to see his princess safe and smiling. And Winter's like, ugh, gross. He's already got a well-developed crush on Winter at this point, and she just doesn't get it yet. But this novella also helps us understand why Winter is so against using her powers once we get to the book Winter. She sees a woman trying to jump off the balcony of the palace and kill herself, and so Winter is actually very skilled with her lunar powers and reaches out to the woman and like makes her come back. And like her father even tells Winter, he's like, I'm really proud of you for trying to do the right thing. And she was like, trying, like I saved her life. But her father knows better than anyone, as we find out in Ferris, that using her gift to take away someone else's power without their permission is not fair. And even if she thought she was doing the right thing, it's never right to take someone else's freedom to do what they want away from them. And Winter doesn't quite understand this all the way yet, and she's actually training to become a thaumaturge. And we do get a little bit from Winter's perspective of her father's death, and it was really sad. We get a lot more in Ferris. She realizes that Levana really did love her father, even though people really looked down on her for marrying a guard. And this kind of parallels Winter's own experience because she's running to Jason all the time to have him comfort her from these nightmares of her father's death, and people are starting to whisper about them. They're getting a little bit older, and her sneaking off to a boy's bedroom isn't exactly what people are expecting of her to do. She finds out that the woman she saved years ago has finally managed to kill herself and realizes what was going on behind the scenes. She didn't know the full story. She finds out that Thaumaturge Park, Amory, was like horribly abusive and was mind controlling her into doing whatever he wanted. So it makes it like that much more scary in Winter when he proposes to her, because she knows his backstory and his history, and Winter feels like she was the one who facilitated this abuse for years because she kept the woman alive. And this is like the time when Winter decides she's never using her powers again, and her first hallucination that she has from her lunar sickness, that Jason warned her that these could be coming, and she's like, I haven't had any yet. And when she does, the first one is her father calling out to her. And as these hallucinations get worse, she continually goes to Jason for comfort and for him to walk her through these. And that's kind of how she realizes that she was in love with him all the time, and especially now. Levana thinks that the way to snap Winter out of her protesting to use her powers is to give her these big scars on her face so that she'll want to use a glamour the way Levana wants to use a glamour to hide all of her burns and scars. She's like, this is motivation, and it doesn't work. And Levana continually just punishes Winter over and over. Jason's whole family is getting transferred to the outer sectors because her father got a demotion. And Winter immediately knows that it's because of her, because she's in love with Jason, and it's obvious. And Jason is either leaving or giving up his dream of becoming a doctor and is going to go into the Palace Guard, which is what he chooses because he knows he can't leave Winter alone. And when she sees him again, he's so closed off. And this is the Jason we get to know a lot better in Winter, is this guard persona that when Winter sees him, she's like, this is a different person. And so they're no longer like best friends. They have this new dynamic of princess and guard. Like, they used to be on the same level, and now like his duty is to protect her, and it changes the way they treat each other. Even though they always treat each other well, it's the dynamic is so shifted that it's caused kind of a break in the way their relationship works, which is what Levana wanted. Either they were going to be apart or it was going to seem impossible for them to be together. The saddest one of all was the little android. We don't really get to know this character in any other part of the Lunar Chronicles. We have this like mech 6.0 android, and she is very similar to Aiko. When she sees a boy that she likes, her fan stutters and she thinks there's something wrong with her. And so there's this girl named Miko, and she is with her father. They're making a ship, and one of the engineers is Dataran, but it's obvious to Mech 6.0 that they're falling in love with each other, and she loves Dataran. Dataran falls into a vat of oil, and so she as an android plunges in after him and saves him. She overhears the engineers talking about her and being like, androids don't go after people, they're made just to work, and so there's something wrong with this android. So she realizes she's going to be disconnected forever. They're just going to throw her away for scraps, and so she goes into the market area and finds Cinder, and all she has is like, first of all, this old antique watch that she's unwilling to give away because it's Dataran's and she hasn't given it back, and like a trading card. And it's so sad because Cinder's like, look, you can't buy anything with this trading card, like it's not gonna get you like even a tiny piece of replacement, and she needs a whole new body. And Cinder really takes pity on her and tells her that she has one of those like very human looking bodies that she was just keeping around for parts because it doesn't work very well. But she takes it because she really doesn't have any other choice, and she shows up as an engineer. The voice box of her new body doesn't work, and Cinder warned her that the body would glitch a lot, and when it does, the android realizes what she's feeling is pain. Like, even though she's mechanical, like she is feeling actual pain, which really humanizes her, and she like has this thought that she literally wants to kill Miko, and that's so un-android like. Really does have this horrible breakdown where her body just can't move and she seizes up and falls over. Miko sends Dataran to get some water, even though water is not going to help Star because she is an android, and Miko comes up to her and she's like, are you one of those escort droids, like those full body droids? Star's just like so embarrassed, but Miko's like, well, like recognizes like, and shows her that she's a cyborg, and that's the reason that that Miko and her father are building this ship and leaving the Commonwealth is because the risk is too high of Miko being drawn for this cyborg draft and getting killed with letumosis. And Miko even tells Star, she's like, I'd rather take my chances with the draft if that means I get to stay here with Dataran. Dataran understands, he's also worried about Miko's safety, and he was gonna get a boat himself, but he's lost a huge portion of the money he was gonna use because he was gonna trade in that watch locket thing. And she realized that to her, the universe meant nothing without Dataran, the same way the universe means nothing to Dataran without Miko. It was a really sad love triangle because she doesn't hate Miko. Miko's a good person. So she somehow ends up giving that locket to Miko so that she can give it to Dataran, they can get away. Instead, Star impersonates Miko, and Miko and Dataran are going to be able to leave and start their own life as well. And it was really sad because the ship, goes up, it goes into the stars, and Star is among the stars. It was like kind of a nice moment, and she at least gets to see that before she dies. It was really, really upsetting. So probably one of my favorites was the mechanic where Kai and Cinder meet for the first time. Kai shows up and he's pleasantly surprised when he comes to the mechanics booth and finds a cute girl there. It's really interesting that Kai looks at Cinder's old foot that is still on the table. That would be mortifying. He's looking at all the wires and he doesn't find it disgusting the way most people do. He's just like, oh, that's interesting how this can act exactly like a human limb. And he's more intrigued than disgusted. Aiko meeting Kai was so cute. It was cute the first time, it was cute the second time in Kai's perspective when she sighed and was like, oh, Kai, you're so handsome. And he's excited to come back because Aiko's like, you should come and hang out with us. Kai is he actually wants to go back and he wants to make Cinder smile for real. So we get to the cute one, something old, something new. And Aiko starts it off with seeing Cinder's outfit, and she's like, just because you're not queen anymore doesn't mean you get to look like you rolled out of an engine compartment. And our crew reconnects on the Rampion, and it's so funny because they just went shopping for all this wedding stuff. And Cress is like, we didn't really know what we needed, and Aiko's like, it's gaudy, but I can work with gaudy. So Scarlet and Wolf are gonna be the first known marriage between a lunar and an earthen in a really long time. And so all these people, it's big news. And Scarlet hates this because she wanted a private wedding with her friends, and Cinder's like, well, your friends are an ex-queen / rebel, the Emperor of the Commonwealth, a famous fugitive / hero, we're gonna draw some attention. And so the girls take Scarlet upstairs and they're like, show us your dress, show us what you're gonna wear for her wedding in a couple days. And she puts it on. And I don't know if Winter just makes this up. She's like, Scarlet, you have to keep the dress on for an hour for 3 days leading up to the wedding for good luck. And Wolf told them that there's a really important tradition to Scarlet. It's the something old tradition of something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And her something old is her grandmother's flight pin. And they put it on her dress, and even though it doesn't really match, and Aiko is insistent that it clashes. And downstairs there's all this thumping and moving, and they're trying to distract Scarlet because downstairs the boys are setting up for the wedding. It was really sweet because Scarlet didn't have anything blue, and Winter stitches the word alpha into her dress with blue thread, and that was really cute. She and Scarlet have become friends despite their rocky relationship. And Wolf is down there in his tuxedo, and he tells Scarlet that he knows she's annoyed by all the press coverage and was wondering if she would want to marry him now. It's so cute. Scarlet's friend Emily from the first book is crying, and then she hears another sniffle, and it's Aiko who cannot cry and is faking it. But then they go out under the stars and have a really cute moment, and then Kai proposes. So stinking cute. And they all lived happily ever after. Which was your favorite? I think my favorite was probably the Queen's Army. Please like this video if you liked it and subscribe so we can talk about more book stuff. My name's Katelyn. Thanks for watching. Bye!